Naruto, God-level lottery powers unleashed. Episode 81. The graduation ceremony of this ninja school was originally the day after Shizuka Hata's arrival in Konoha, and the third generation of Hokage was ready to invite Shizuka Hachida and the emissary of the Land of Thunder to participate in the ceremony. However, I didn't expect that Shizuka Hata's purpose was not simple. Not only framing the stars, but also releasing the 9 tails, causing the graduation ceremony to be postponed. In fact, the ninja school graduation ceremony was just a very simple ceremony, and if it weren't for Joshinai's desire for him to be there, he wouldn't be interested. Hoshichin and Tsunade came to the venue together and were warmly welcomed by the school teacher. Coincidentally, Xingchen also met his original teacher Mui. Mui is still just a teacher at the school, still just an elite, but Xingchen is already a famous ninja who has left legends. At the beginning, he failed the graduation exam, and he still needed to retake it again with the face of Tsunade. Today, he stands with Tsunade, but people are far more in awe of him than Tsunade. Time flies so fast. Xingchen sighed with some emotion. It's not that time flies quickly, but that you have changed too much in recent years. Yes? Xingchen touched his chin. Brother Xingchen. At this moment, a red-haired girl in bright and clean clothes quickly rushed over and was very happy to see the stars. Xingchen rubbed Joshinai's head and asked with a smile, "How is it? Haven't you been uncomfortable in the past few days?" Joshinai knew that the stars were referring to the matter of the 9 tails, and immediately replied, "No, and I feel that my strength has improved a lot." That's good. Xingchen's heart calmed down. Xingchen, Tsunade, you are here too. At this time, the 3 generations of Hokage and Jiraiya also walked in from outside. This little girl has to ask me to come, no way. Xingchen shrugged. Hee, such a grand occasion, even if I don't ask for it. Brother Xingchen, are you embarrassed not to come? Joshinai grinned. Jiraiya, it's strange that you're here. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya. She knew best that he almost never attended such occasions. Zilai also said distrustedly, Teacher Apefei pulled me here and said that he wanted me to accept a student. Let you take apprentices? Tsunade was stunned for a moment, and then said with a smile, it's funny, I just don't know who has such a big face and let Sarutobi-sensei invite you here. Actually, I just followed Xingchen's advice, and after observing for a while, I found that he is indeed a good seedling, worth cultivating. Huh? Tsunade looked at the stars suspiciously, and then at Kushina. Could it be? Xingchen shook his head and said, it's not Joshinai, but Bluffing Shui Men, Wave Feng Shui Men? Joshinai's eyes widened. Brother Xingchen, do you know him and care so much about him? Counted as acquaintances, you are in the same class as him, how is the relationship with him? Xingchen looked at Joshinai and wanted to ask about this. If at the beginning, he and Joshinai did not have much intersection, maybe he would not be so attentive to Joshinai, but since he has now unknowingly established a delicate relationship with Joshinai, it is impossible for him to give Joshinai to Bluffing Shui Men again. Xingchen never thought he was great, on the contrary, his selfishness was heavier than anyone else's. For him, the people he values always come first, and any other factors can only be sidelined. Even if the original plot completely collapses because of one of his own thoughts, it doesn't matter. That yellow hair, the person is still quite good, at least he didn't discriminate against me like others. Joshinai thought for a while and said, but he and Shoei are very close, and the two of them have a catty look. Who? Xingchen didn't react for a while. Shoei, my best friend, you forgot? Joshinai reminded, in the country of whirlpools, or did you save her? Xingchen then remembered, it turned out that the Vortex clan still had such a person. He escorted Kushina to the land of Whirlpool and rescued Whirlpool Koi and her father, and later his family came to Konoha to settle down. Could it be that Whirlpool Shoei wants to come together with Bluffing Shui Men? That looks good. Xingchen suddenly laughed. What dirty thing are you thinking about, laughing so lewdly? Tsunade glared angrily. Ahem. Not to mention this, the graduation ceremony is about to begin, and we are seated. Next is the time to enter the ceremony, the 3 generations of Hokage to give speeches, the presentation of honorary certificates to graduates, and so on. Xingchen, how about you also come on stage and say a few words? 3 generations suggested. To be honest, your status in the hearts of this group of students is only higher than mine. This is by no means an exaggeration. The legend of the stars has long been a household name, plus he is only 16 years old this year, and he has long been regarded as a heroic idol by the students of the ninja school, and almost everyone is fighting for him. Forget it, I can fight, I'm not good at speech. The stars are not pretentious, but really can't say anything motivating. After 2 hours of hardship, the ceremony was almost over, and Xingchen stretched his waist and breathed a long sigh of relief. It's finally over, Tsunade, let's go back. Just as the two got up, the 3rd generation of Hokage suddenly said, Xingchen, don't rush to leave first, since Bluffing Shui Men is recommended by you, then meet him with us. Bluffing Shui Men is undoubtedly a genius, showing extraordinary talent from an early age. However, at this time, he was suddenly called over by Hokage alone, and there were 2 adults next to him, Jiraiya and Tsunade, and the idol star he had always longed for, which made him nervous. Watergate, don't be nervous, I came to you, I told you something. The 3rd generation of Hokage went straight to the point and pointed at Jiraiya. After you graduate, Jiraiya will also be your instructor, and he will guide you alone. Huh? The happiness was too sudden, and Buofeng Shuimen couldn't believe it. Jiraiya is also one of the 3 ninjas, and in the second ninja world battle, he fought against Hanzo, a ninja peak ninja in the ninja world, undefeated. Such a powerful ninja would become his instructor alone? Even if he didn't want to, he could only admit it at this time. And he belongs to the kind of person who does not do it, and once identified, he will be responsible to the end. Buofeng Shuimen became his apprentice, and perhaps he could also pin his dreams. Watergate, the first meeting. I don't have any meeting gifts for you, just let you see a ninjutsu. Zilai also said, his right hand spread out in front of the wave feng shui gate. Immediately, the blue chakra condensed into a whirlpool, causing a wind force. Seeing this, Xingchen was slightly startled. Zilai, this guy, really took the spiral pill to teach the wave feng shui gate? Episode 82. Is it a spiral pill? When Buofeng Shuimen saw Jiraiya's ninjutsu, he immediately shouted in silence, huh? Zilai also wondered, have you seen Spiral Pill? Immediately, he looked at the stars again. You taught him? Xingchen felt funny, but still shook his head and said, no, it's also the first time I've officially met him. Then how did he know that this technique is called a spiral pill? Ask him yourself. Xingchen shrugged, and there were some doubts in his heart. Could it be that the wave feng shui gate that has just graduated has already created a spiral pill? At this time, Buofeng Shuimen stretched out his right hand, and at the same time covered his left hand over his right hand, constantly kneading, like rubbing balls. Whoosh! The sound of air friction came, but I saw that the palm of the right hand of the wave feng shui gate gradually condensed a trace of vortex power. However, it is a pity that Buofeng Shuimen is already the limit to do this. Chakra has not formed, and he is also very hard and sweats a lot. It seems that Buofeng Shuimen has long constructed the concept of spiral pills in his mind, but his ability is limited, and he can't really display the spiral pills. After all, he is different from others. Others learn spiral pills after knowing the conceptual method, and he is creating spiral pills. Perhaps some ninjutsu are easy to learn after knowing the principles and methods. But when it was created, it must have been a very difficult process. Jiraiya-sensei, I usually finish classes, and when I am bored, I like to ponder some ninjutsu by myself, and then I proposed the idea of spiral pills, but I have never been able to realize it. Buofeng Shuimen said a little frustrated, I didn't expect that this technique was not the first I invented, and the teacher has completely realized it. You conceived this technique yourself? Jilai was also surprised. If Buofeng Shuimen didn't lie, it would be terrible. A freshly graduated student has been able to come up with ideas and create ninjutsu. What a genius. It's just that why is the technique he envisioned exactly the same principle as the spiral pill of the stars, and it just happens to be called spiral pill? Watergate, I didn't invent this technique, but him. Zilai also pointed to the stars and said, I also saw him exert himself, so I became interested and studied it for a long time. Lord Xingchen. Buofeng Shuimen looked at the stars, and there was a trace of relief in his heart. If it was him, it would be reasonable to create the spiral pill before himself. Little Yellow Mao, do you know how powerful Brother Xingchen is? Jiao Xinai ran behind Xingchen at some point, grabbed Xingchen's clothes, and poked out his little head. Buofeng Shuimen scratched his head, only smiled shyly. Watergate, although you haven't practiced the spiral pill yet, this technique was created by yourself and didn't rely on anyone, so there is no need to be discouraged. Having seen the stars of the original book, he still admires the 4th generation of Hokage, although he is now his junior. Well, I will work hard to become a big hero like Lord Xingchen in the future and protect the village. Buofeng Shuimen is really a little flattered today. These people he usually admires the most are encouraging themselves at this time. What reason does he have not to forge ahead? Before leaving, Xingchen seemed to have thought of something again, and said to the 3 generations of Hokage, Lord Hokage, it is better to let Jiao Shernai join the Shadow Organization. Now that she has graduated, I will have someone take her. The Shadow Organization has not yet taken shape, and there is no institution that specializes in training newcomers, but it should be no problem to let Yuna guide Jiao Xinai. Good, good. Jiao Xinai jumped up excitedly. The 3rd generation of Hokage muttered, I don't have a problem, but I'm afraid Danzo won't agree. Tuanzo? Xingchen frowned. He asked Jiao Xinai to join the shadow, just to bring Jiao Xinai to himself, and had no other ideas. But others don't think so, especially Tuanzang. After all, Jiao Xinai is a 9-tailed human pillar force, which is not small. Danzo and Hoshi are now both real power factions in Konoha, so to speak, rivals. How could he agree to let the 9 tails fall into the hands of Hoshi? Tuanzang is indeed difficult to deal with, but it is nothing more than trouble. Let him have an opinion and find me again. Jiao Xinai, come with me. Jiao Xinai was excited. At the root headquarters, Tuanzang, who has been paying attention to Jiao Xinai's dynamics, learned the news that Jiao Xinai was taken away by the stars. Master Tuanzang, Shi Xingchen has seriously threatened your status, and the 9 tails must not be handed over to him again. The 2 attendants who came to pray suggested, if necessary, I think Shi Xingchen should be removed. Tuanzang did not show too anxious a look, his expression was calm, as if he was not worried. Shi Xingchen's strength is unknown, and it is almost impossible to remove him without leaving a trace. Tuanzong said indifferently. As for the 9 tails, it is currently in a stable state, and it is temporarily deposited with Shi Xingchen, which does not matter. But, the 2 attendants were about to say something, but were interrupted by Tuanzong. My distinguished guest is here. When the words fell, in the dark passage, a man in white with light steps like a ghost slowly walked in. Orochimaru. The 2 attendants were astonished. You guys go down first, I have something important to discuss with the big snake pill. Tuanzong waved his hand. Yes. The 2 attendants saluted respectfully and disappeared into the darkness. In the dim hall, only Tuanzong and Orochimaru were left. Tuanzong, although your place is quiet, the light is not good, and if you live in this kind of place all the time, won't you get bored and sick? The big snake pill had a hint of evil energy in his tone. I'm used to it, and you're a snake, so you should like this environment, right? Tuanzong said lightly, besides, it's not your first time to come to me, and this topic is very nutritious. It's true that it's not the first time I've come to you, but I think it's my first time coming to you as a distinguished guest. Orochimaru licked his tongue and said evilly, in the past, you were my boss, but this time you plan to divide your position in half before inviting me here? The big snake pill's presumptuousness, Tuanzong was not annoyed, and still said calmly, I know that you are not small, and the root can't enter your eyes. If you really care about power, your goal should also be in the position of Hokage. I may have thought about it before, but now I find that Hokage is not suitable for me, and I have a longer-term pursuit. Yes? Tuanzong said, and suddenly stood up from his seat. Why don't I show you my laboratory first? Maybe you will like it there. Episode 83. After World War II, everything was in ruins, and the ninja world finally calmed down for a while, and the stars also planned to rest. The 9 secrets could not be controlled overnight, and he had only comprehended a small part of it so far. Now in his spare time, he finally has time to focus on cultivation. Of course, he did not close his doors, and still cared about the big and small things around him. Time flies, 2 years in the blink of an eye. During these 2 years, the shadow tissue gradually took shape. The number of shadow organizations is still small, but each is an elite, and a large net has been opened in Konoha, pervasive, and its influence is not weaker than that of the root organization. My strength is almost at the bottleneck, and I need to look for opportunities to break through. The 9 secrets is a supreme method that cannot be induced by chakra. Therefore, star cultivation is not only to cultivate the 9 secrets, but also to absorb the heaven and earth yuan power to improve the realm. In other words, Xingchen's current cultivation direction has detached from the category of the Hokage world and is not a system. If I had to define it, he was now a Sendo practitioner, not a ninja. It's been 2 years, I don't know how she is now. Xingchen remembered Shizuka Hata, and as soon as his mind moved, he summoned the slugs and went to the wet-bone forest. I thought that Shizuka Hata would be very unaccustomed to the life of the wet-bone forest, but it was unexpected by the stars. In the past 2 years, she has not made a little mood, and seems to have lingered in the wet-bone forest. When the stars came to the wet-bone forest, Shizuka Hata was sitting by the river that had no end. At this moment, she seems to be integrated with heaven and earth, so quiet and peaceful. I haven't seen you in 2 years, you have changed a lot. Xingchen smiled faintly and looked at Shizuka Hata with an appreciative gaze, unabashedly. Shizuka Hata opened her beautiful eyes and stretched lazily, showing her perfect figure, which made people reverie. Naturally, there will be some changes, otherwise wouldn't it live up to your good intentions? Shizuka Hata turned around, her bright eyes looked at the stars, revealing a charming smile, and your changes are not small, you have become more masculine. In 2 years, Xingchen has changed a lot regardless of height and temperament, and at the age of 18, he does seem more mature. That should be very much in line with your heart, right? Xingchen walked to Shizuka Hata's side in small steps, caressing a strand of her blue silk lightly, sniffing the faint body fragrance on her body, playing with the taste. When I exercise certain rites in the future, will you enjoy it more? Shizuka Hata was stunned slightly, as if remembering something, and a hint of blush appeared on her white and flawless face. Immediately, her slim hand gently wrapped around, and a majestic natural chakra condensed in the palm of her hand, and blasted towards the stars. The stars seemed to have expected it earlier, and casually blocked. Pung! The air roared, and the two retreated at the same time, widening the distance. What are you doing? The blush on Shizuka Hata's face had not yet dissipated, but she snorted softly. You should know that I am not what I used to be, and what I said at the beginning cannot be counted. No, you're crossing the river and demolishing the bridge. Xingchen was very angry and said, your life was saved by me, you can practice immortal arts, but also by my relationship. Now you want to pay the bill? 1 yard to 1 yard, women are originally realistic. You are kind to me, but if I am stronger than you, what qualifications do you have to have me? Xingchen raised his eyebrows. Then you mean? Shizuka Hata's hands were raised, and she was actually condensing a layer of powerful chakra momentum around her body, and the entire wet bone forest was shocked. Quite simply, if you want me to obey, show your skills and reconquer me. Xingchen rolled his eyes. Do you think that after studying immortal arts for 2 years, you have surpassed me? Although you seem to know a lot about fairy arts, you haven't actually come into contact with immortal arts, have you? Shizuka Hata said, the power of fairy arts would not have been understood without experiencing it firsthand. Yes, you seem to be swelling a little. Xingchen shook his head, very nerve-wracking. Since you think I'm inflated, then use your strength to crush me. Shizuka Hata, with a wave of her hand, a majestic momentum turned into a substantial killing intent, sweeping towards the stars. This is not any ninjutsu, just the violent flow of air, caused by the use of the fairy chakra, or rather, air cannon. Woman, it's just not tweak. The stars sighed softly, and when the air cannon approached, the figure disappeared in an instant. This speed is extreme, and the eyes can't keep up at all. However, Shizuka Hatada said lightly, the perception of immortal arts is incomparable. Even if I can't see it, I can capture your movements. Wow. Shizuka Hata turned into an aurora, flew into the air, and instantly found the location of the stars, containing the fierce punch of the blue chakra. Rumble. Like a thunderous explosion, the terrifying momentum hit the four wilds, and the rock walls around the wet bone forest were destroyed. Speed, strength, reflexes, it's all impeccable, no wonder so confident. Xingchen and Shizuka Hata, both of them are motionless, and the confrontation of strength is evenly matched. Xingchen, Shizuka's practice in the past 2 years is not only that, you have to be careful. At this time, the slug fairy who was watching the battle between the two reminded him. Oh? The corner of Xingchen's mouth raised a slight arc. It means that you have mercy on my subordinates? I don't want to despise you either, so I'll let you see my strongest move. Shizuka Hata said, clasping her hands together. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed, the thunder frightened away, and several purple patterns and runes appeared at the corners of Shizuka Hata's eyes. Purple? There is no doubt that Shizuka Hata, at this time, can be regarded as truly entering the immortal mode. However, Xingchen remembered that whether it was Naruto, Jiraiya, or the immortal mode of the original and Ikushi pockets, red patterns would appear in the corners of their eyes without exception. Shizuka Hata's pattern, why is it purple? Rumble. The momentum that was several times more terrifying than before erupted. Shizuka Hata seemed to enter a crazy violent state, full of purple chakra lingering, stepping in the air. It would actually leave a shallow trace. Immortal Law Thunder Spear. Shizuka Hata raised her hand with one hand, and the purple chakra condensed into a thunderbolt, and then turned into an indestructible spear, penetrating towards the stars at extreme speed. At this time, Xingchen stood in place, looking directly at Shizuka Hata, who was running away, but did not resist at all. In the extreme moment, seeing that the sharp spear was about to penetrate the throat of the stars, he suddenly stopped again. The domineering momentum disappeared, the wind and clouds dispersed, the heavens and the earth were silent, and everything returned to its initial state, as if nothing had happened. It's a pity, why don't you do it? You can almost kill me. Hashichin looked at Shizuka Hata, who had regained her calm in front of her, and shrugged. You are so boring, let you play with me, and suddenly you don't move. Shizuka Hata snorted dissatisfiedly, and seemed to be a little coquettish. Aren't you afraid that I will really kill you? Xingchen smiled lightly. There is no doubt about the use of people, and doubts are not used. Don't say that I am still stronger than you now. Even if you can surpass me one day, you will only be dead to me in this life, right? Episode 84. Why are you so narcissistic? I am the princess of the country of thunder, 1,000 golden bodies. How can I be willing to submit to your lustful power for the rest of my life? Shizuka Hata rolled her eyes. Still thinking that you are a princess, go out with me and let you get away with it for so long. It's time to fulfill your obligations. Well, although the immortal art has not yet reached perfection, it is indeed quite boring to stay here and practice. Shizuka Hata couldn't wait to say, it's still the outside world is wonderful. Don't think I'm taking you out on a tour, it's impossible to go outside as easy as here. Hashichin pulled Shizuka Hachita, said goodbye to the slugs, and returned to Konoha. But as soon as he came out, he immediately received a very bad news. During a secret mission, Kimu Shuamao fell into an enemy trap and unfortunately died. This is undoubtedly shocking and regrettable news. Konoha White Fan Banner Mushuo Shigeru, like the three shinobi, is also a legend, representing Konoha's cutting-edge combat power. When he died, the impact was significant. How so? Chimu Shuamao died in battle? Xingchen frowned. He remembered that Chimu Shuamao in the original book was because he gave up the mission in order to save his teammates during the mission, and after returning to the village, he was discriminated against by others and committed suicide to apologize. How could it have been killed in battle? With his strength that is not weaker than the three shinobi, how can he easily die in battle? Xingchen was very concerned about this matter and specially went to the third generation of Hokage to understand the reason. It's Lei Ying's hand. Hokage's answer surprised the stars. It's related to Yunin village again, they deliberately targeted Konoha? The third generation Hokage nodded and said, not bad, this task taken over by Kiki Shuamao, although it is confidential, but it is not worth enough to make Ichimura no Kage personally take action. Obviously Lei Kage. Before he finished speaking, Xingchen already understood. 2 years have passed since Shizuka Hata's incident, and Yunin village has not moved, but it does not mean that they have forgotten. Instead, they had been jealous of the incident and had been looking for an opportunity to target Konoha, but there was no breakthrough. This time, Chimu Shuamao undoubtedly became the target of their hatred. After all, Kiki Shua Shigeru has an extraordinary status in Konoha, and killing him is enough to cause Konoha to suffer heavy damage. Sorry, maybe it's because of me. Shizuka Hata was very guilty. The third generation of Hokage glanced at Shizuka Hachida and shook his head. It has nothing to do with you, you are just a pawn they use. Their goal now is to invade, and they want to provoke a war with Konoha. This group of guys, do you really think that the ninja world is invincible? And they are getting more and more inch. Xingchen's eyes were cold. Chimu Shuamao's death has a great impact in the village, and the situation is not optimistic. The third Hokage sighed, his face worried. Don't worry, I'll handle this matter. Xingchen said, the shadow organization has been established for 2 years, and it has never done a sensational thing to establish faith. Sensing the determination of the stars, the 3 generations of Hokage couldn't help but ask, what are you going to do? Of course it's a big move, wait and see. Xingchen said, and left with Shizuka Hachida. In Konoha village, the matter of Kiki Shuamao has received widespread attention and caused widespread discussion. This Flagmu Shuamao is called Konoha White Fang, and he actually made such a mistake, which led to the failure of the mission and the loss of the interests of the village. That is, at that time, he could obviously complete the task, but in order to save his teammates, he actually gave up the task and ran to fight with Lei Ying, not knowing whether he was dead or alive. Who does he think he is, and can fight Thunder Shadow? As a result, he died in battle, and the mission failed. Don't say that, didn't he save his teammates by sacrificing himself? When a ninja performs a mission, the task always comes first, and it is unwise to abandon the mission to save your teammates, let alone such an important mission. In my opinion, this guy deserves to die. This kind of person is not worthy of being a ninja. Although Chimu Shuamao died differently from the original, the influence left behind in Konoha village is the same. It is shameful to abandon the mission to save his teammates, and everyone believes that he is not a qualified ninja. These people are excessive. Shizuka Hachida, who wandered around the street with the stars, said indignantly, do you think Chimu Shuamao's approach is right? Xingchen looked at her and asked, of course, Chimu Shuamao must know that he can't fight Lei Ying, but he still sneaked in alone and sacrificed himself to save his teammates. Shouldn't it be admirable? But in the ninja code, when performing a mission, the task is greater than all factors. Unsympathetic rules. Fortunately, I haven't brainwashed in a ninja school. Shizuka Hata disagreed. The stars suddenly appeared. Shizuka Hachida was not even a ninja before this, and rarely touched the world of ninjas. So, your thoughts are the thoughts of normal people. Xingchen sighed, the ninja world does have a lot of bad habits. You should have the same opinion as me, otherwise you wouldn't be angry because of Chimu Shuamao's affairs. Shizuka Hata asked solemnly, then what exactly is the big move you are talking about? Xingchen did not answer directly, but suddenly asked, if I want to make enemies with the Cloud Ninja village of the Thunder Country now, what will you do? Isn't my attitude still obvious? Those who stand against you are my enemies, no matter who they are. Hearing this affirmative answer, Xingchen smiled lightly, well, let's go to Yunin village tonight. Night falls, land of thunder, Yunin village. This time is really a relief, directly killed Chimu Shuamao, the legendary Konoha White Fang, but that's it. Of course, after all, the 3 generations of Lei personally shot. No matter how powerful Chimu Shuamao is, it is also a dead end. It is said that the pot has exploded on Konoha's side, people's hearts are scattered, and the loss of the trump card of Chimu Shuamao is a heavy blow to them. Humph, this is not enough. I feel that the 3 generations of Lei will take advantage of the victory to pursue, and there may be big moves recently. It's best to destroy Konoha directly, then our Yunin village will undoubtedly be the first in the ninja world. Compared to Konoha's denunciation and frustration, Kumo Shinobi village was immersed in joy and the thrill of victory. However, they did not realize that the night crisis had quietly arrived. Above a peak, 2 figures stand condescendingly, overlooking the entire Yunin village. Just the 2 of us, it's too risky, right? Shizuka Hata knew that Xingchen was going to make a big move, but she didn't expect it to be so outrageous, and actually planned to break into Yunin village with 2 people. Although I have practiced immortal arts, it is not perfect. The 3rd generation of Thunder Shadow is not an ordinary shadow level. Against him, I am only 2% sure. 2% sure, enough. The stars insisted on going their own way, their hands quickly froze, and a condensed chakra momentum erupted. Water curtain Tianhua. In an instant, a water barrier covered the sky, tearing the night and swallowing the darkness, as if opening an enchantment, shrouding the entire Yunin village. Episode 85. This. Shizuka Hata stared blankly at the water curtain in the sky, shocked. What a scale of chakra this is. It is simply even more terrifying than her fairy chakra. However, making such a big movement, didn't it instantly attract the attention of everyone in Yunin village? As if seeing Shizuka Hata's doubts, Xingchen said lightly, I didn't plan to raid. If I didn't go in an upright way, they wouldn't have learned a lesson. Fight head on, even if I can resist the Thunder Shadow. Can you deal with a ninja village alone? Don't forget that Yunin village has 2 tails and 8 tails, which are both existence beyond the shadow level. You are not the opponent of the 3rd generation of Thunder Shadow now. I brought you here just to let you see it, and I didn't expect you to help me. Although Shizuka Hata can enter the immortal mode, she has too little combat experience, and her actual combat power is estimated to be ordinary shadow level. The strength of the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow has been shown to the extreme in the original work. Hand-to-hand combat Yao does not fall behind. The strongest defense ignores the attack of Orochimaru's shuriken. there are almost no weaknesses, and in the end Naruto opportunistically seals it. Shizuka Hata said that she was only 2% sure of fighting against Thunder Shadow, but in Xingchen's opinion, she had no chance of winning at all. So bringing Shizuka Hata this time is just to temper her. You didn't expect me to help you, you mean, you want to single out Yunin village alone? Shizuka Hata's eyes widened. No matter how strong a person is, how can he do such a thing? What's going on? What's the sky? Even if it was slack, the huge watercolored sky curtain in the sky also attracted the attention of the guards of Yunin village. There are chakra fluctuations, that's ninjutsu, there are enemy attacks, everyone be on guard. Such a large-scale ninjutsu, the situation is not right. Immediately inform Lord Lei. In fact, there is no need to report, the 3 generations of Lei have already run out for the first time. Who came to my Yunin village to make trouble? Uncle Lei, long time no see. At this time, a cold voice sounded, causing the 3 generations of Lei to be slightly startled. You are. Yikes. 2 figures descended from the sky, did not hide, and directly landed in the encirclement of the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow and Yunin's guard. Although it was night and the light was not very sufficient, the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow still recognized Shizuka Hata, and said in shock, You are a princess? Shizuka Hata said lightly, Uncle Thunder Kage, the princess of the Land of Thunder died 2 years ago, died in Konoha, and died of a terminal illness. What stands in front of you now is only Shizuka Hata. The 3 generations of Thunder Kage were silent, and he, like everyone, thought that Shizuka Hachida had died 2 years ago. After all, her terminal illness was judged to have no cure as early as a child, and even her father gave her up. Today, Shizuka Hata stood alive in front of him, and it seemed that he was still in a hostile position, which made him not good for a while. Uncle Lei, don't feel embarrassed. If you have a chance, kill me. Similarly, if he opens his mouth, I will not show mercy to you or the subordinates of Yunin village. Shizuka Hata's tone was indifferent, without a trace of emotion. Betraying the Land of Thunder for him? The 3 generations of Thunder Shadows looked at the stars. Xingchen sneered, if you don't give up on her first, why would she betray? What she owes you has long been paid, and now she should live for herself. It's for you, Shi Xingchen. The 3rd generation of Lei also knew the identity of Xingchen at this moment, and said indifferently, You dare to say that you didn't use anything to bind her? That's not the point, even if I let her go free, she won't return to the Land of Thunder. Lei glanced at Shizuka Hata, saw that she did not object, did not have any change in expression, and said instead, This is not discussed for the time being, I just want to know, what happened to your late-night visit? What's going on? Xingchen sneered, Don't you even have this bit of self-knowledge? As a Thunder Shadow, regardless of his identity, he personally targeted Chimu Shuamao, really thought that he could be unscrupulous? Sure Xingchen, don't be so naive. What is the situation in the ninja world today? You will not be unclear. Chimu Shuamao let me seize the opportunity, how could I let it go easily? The blame is only that he is too light on the enemy. The words of the 3 generations of Lei are undoubtedly very selfish, but they are very in line with the cruel reality. The dispute between the 2 countries and the 2 villages is a political game, and it is too foolish to talk about benevolence and reason. Think differently, if it was Kyumo Shinobu who had a lot of influence at that time and fell into Konoha's trap, would Konoha let him go? Apparently not. Without a good excuse, the 2 villages will not be able to fight for a while. But if there is an opportunity to weaken the other side, no one will miss it. Since you said so, there is a good opportunity in front of you. Xingchen shrugged and said, I'm right here, and I have the ability to kill me. I think my influence is only higher than Chimu Shuamao, right? I really have an idea. The 3 generations of Lei Ying's gaze froze, and said coldly, Although you are young, you are a legend, at least worthy of the value of 3 Chimu Shuamao. Then the conversation ends here, let's do it. Xingchen raised his hand and seemed to be ready to make a move. Alert! Countless ninjas in Yunin village surrounded the 2 of them, showing vigilance, but they did not dare to take the lead for a while. The 3 generations of Lei also frowned, not daring to be careless, because he couldn't figure out why the stars had come here. Avenge Chimu Shuamao and get justice? But there are only 2 people, among which Shizuka Hachida is not even a ninja. To say that they are going to fight and seek revenge, it is really a bit fanciful. I don't know the height of the sky. Sure Xingchen is not a waste of fame, and will never do meaningless things. Don't worry that I will have a backhand, tell you very clearly, we are just 2 people. Yes, should I praise you for being brave or stupid? The 3 generations of Thunder Shadows suddenly clenched their hands into fists, and blue chakras lingered around them. It doesn't matter if you have a backhand or no backhand. This is Yunin village, why should I be afraid of you? Come on, let me see where your confidence comes from. Thunder Shadow activates the cells to form an absolute defense, and there is a flow of lightning on the body, making a whoosh sound. However, at this moment, Shizuka Hata took a step forward and stopped in front of Lei. Uncle Lei, Shizuka has achieved a little in the past 2 years, so let me first come and learn your Lei done. When the words fell, Shizuka Hata's body erupted with an amazing momentum, and the purple immortal pattern was displayed, making her whole person look a little more enchanting. Episode 86. Feeling the oppressive momentum on Shizuka Hata, the expression of the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow changed. Princess, you. Is it strange that a terminally ill person of mine not only did not die, but also gained such great power? Shizuka Hata's purple chakra caused a hurricane, and 3,000 green silks danced in the wind, but her expression was cold. Princess, your father and I are both decision makers. Many things are indeed selfish. You have a reason to hate me and hate this country. 3 generations of Liang expressed guilt, but obviously, if he did it all over again, he would still do it. People in high positions, they can't help themselves, and they can't be too emotional. Uncle Liang, I don't have hatred in my heart, and even once, you were the person I respected the most. Shizuka Hata said indifferently, as for the opposition between you and me now, it lies in the opposition between you and him. The 3rd generation of Liang glanced at Xingchen again. I admire you very much, you really made her so desperate. I really treat her, and she is naturally willing to follow me. Xingchen touched his nose and said, but those of you who have lived in intrigue and conflict of interests all your lives, probably won't understand. Well, you really treat her, so are you going to take her to death today? The 3 generations of thunder shadows moved in their steps, leaving a deep mark on the ground. Shout. I saw a flash of thunder, and the 3 generations of thunder shadows spanned a distance of several meters, directly appeared in front of Shizuka Hata, and smashed out with a violent punch. Rumble. The earth shattered, and Shizuka Hata hit the front, flying out like a cannonball, and crashing several houses in succession. Everything, too fast, happened between electric flint. Don't say that the eyes can't keep up, even the thinking can't keep up at all. Don't blame me for making a sudden move. In fact, I am a thunder ninja, and speed is my advantage. 3 generations of thunder shadows stand proudly and majestically. Everyone in Yunnin village saw the terrifying blow of the thunder shadow, and they were greatly encouraged, and the previous haze gradually dissipated. By the way, no matter who the enemy is, this is Yunnin village. Liang personally sits in the town. Whoever comes is looking for death. Why should they be afraid? You are a frontal shot, and not a sneak attack. Of course I have nothing to say. Shizuka Hata's punch was blown away, but Xingchen's expression remained unchanged from beginning to end, and said lightly, it's just that Shizuka is a weak woman. Aren't you afraid that this punch will really kill her? This issue has been discussed before, and I'm sorry for her. But now that she is on the opposite side of the land of thunder, then I have a reason to kill her, no matter who she is. Not bad, so desperate, ruthless, worthy of thunder shadow. But, to this extent, it is not enough. As soon as the words fell, the ruins of the broken wall in the distance exploded, and a figure rose from the dust. How is it possible, withstanding Lei Ying's punch, unharmed? Everyone was shocked and looked at Shizuka Hata, who didn't even have a little torn clothes. She is still so magnificent, and the momentum on her body is not weak, but even stronger. Uncle Lei Ying, your strength shouldn't be only to this extent. Don't keep your hands next, or you'll lose, Shizuka Hata said, clasping her hands together and drinking lightly. Senfa glass peacock. The purple chakra around the body separated, turning into a strip of shapes, like a huge peacock opening the screen, and like the tailed beast clothes draped on the body. Is it an immortal art? I have also heard the legends of the Holy Land, but I didn't expect to see it in you. The 3 generations of Thunder Shadow looked solemn. He knew that he had to go all out. Shizuka Hachida had already undergone an amazing transformation and was no longer a weak woman. Drink. Shizuka Yada and the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow moved almost at the same time, and when they first fought in the air, the fairy chakra collided with Lei Dun to the extreme. Thundered. The two hardly used ninjutsu, and it was all a clash of physical skills and strength. For a time, the purple sky swept across and thunder moved. In the sky, the two have completely lost their true appearance, and all they can see is a mixture of purple and white shadows. I can't believe it, that weak body can actually go head-to-head with Lord Lei Ying. Is she a monster? Originally a monster, you forgot. She can communicate with the tailed beast. But she is terminally ill. She should have died 2 years ago. How is she still alive? This kind of person, born in the country of thunder, but betrayed the country of thunder. Damn it. Yes, kill her. Shizuka Hachida seems to have aroused the wrath of the people in Yunnin village. Because of her strength, there is already enough threat. She handed it over to Lei Ying to deal with. It's more than enough. We can't just watch. Quickly take down that kid. Everyone be careful. Don't look at his young age. He is a Shurchi star who became famous in World War II. No matter how powerful it is, it's just one person. Everyone goes together. No need to leave a living mouth. Even without the command of Lei Ying, everyone in Yunnin village was very orderly, and soon organized a combat team of dozens of people to besiege the stars. Thunder, thunder, flash. Dozens of ninjas sealed at the same time, performing the same ninjutsu. In an instant, thunder shone all over the sky, and thousands of thunder chains were woven into a huge net, wanting to bind the stars. Want to rely on quantity against me? Think too beautiful. Xingchen smiled disdainfully, and then jumped into the air, his hands sealed. Wind escape tornado. Suddenly, a giant tornado rose out of thin air, and it was actually its own strength, blocking the thunder that dozens of people cast at the same time. It's not good. The other party is a wind ninja, just restraining us. Anyway, that's an exaggeration. Wind cray is good, but the wind escape cast by one person can actually block a thunder escape of the scale. After all, he is Shurchi Xingchen. Yun Ninja couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of spit. They had all heard of Shurchi Xingchen's name before, but they thought it was an exaggeration. However, now that I really face it, I know that the rumors are true, and even the real person is more terrifying than the rumors. Is that the end of it? The stars flying high in the sky blocked the thunder with a blow of the wind, but they did not mean to stop. I saw his right hand raised high, as if he was about to touch the water barrier that covered the sky. Waterfalls. At first, hearing the sound of death, high in the sky, I suddenly saw a flood pouring down, as if breaking the floodgate, and in an instant, it was already a wild wave, engulfing the entire Yunnin village. What a scale! Yun Ninja stared at the sky blankly, and for a moment fell into panic and despair. This catastrophic flood downpouring is not something that can be defended against at all. Episode 87. Everyone immediately disperse and stop casting thunder. Just as the Yun Ninja crowd fell into a panic, a calm voice sounded, commanding everyone. In a blink of an eye, I saw a young man who was about the same age as the stars standing out from the crowd, showing a calmness that did not match his age. 4 generations of thunder shadows? When Xingchen saw this young man, he immediately guessed his identity, the son of 3 generations of Thunder Shadow, and also the future 4th generation of Thunder Shadow. At a young age, he has shown enough wisdom and state of mind, and in the face of this kind of battle, he is still calm and calm. Sure, Xingchen, I finally saw you in person. If I'm not mistaken, your purpose in casting the water escape is not to destroy the Cloud Ninja village, but to prevent us from casting the thunder pill, right? The wind is indeed cray, but in this situation, the water is even more cray. Water can conduct electricity, flood the Yunnin village, and if they cast another large thunderbolt, they will suffer even greater losses. Killing 800 enemies and self-inflicting 8,000 is undoubtedly stupid. The 4th generation of Laying paused for a moment and continued, since you stopped us from casting the thunder dun, it means that you are afraid? In other words, you are also afraid of our power. It is worthy of being the future Thunder Shadow, able to calmly analyze the situation. Xingchen glanced at him and said with a light smile, but stopping you from casting thunder is not necessarily afraid of the power of your joint efforts. So what are you for? Give you some dignity. Dignity? The 4th generation of Thunder Shadow's expression changed, and he shouted angrily, nonsense, let me learn your ability. You? Xingchen shook his head and said, don't overdo yourself, you are not qualified enough. So I'm qualified, right? Without warning, a figure appeared behind the stars, and a heavy sweep of legs swept towards the stars. However, sweeping over, his legs passed directly through the stars and hit the air completely. The figure of the stars in front of him gradually blurred, dispersed like an afterimage, and disappeared without a trace. How could it be? Obviously the timing is just right. The attacker was very puzzled. He had already drilled through the gaps of the stars to sneak attack, and with his speed and strength, the attack should not be in vain. With such speed and strength, not weaker than the average shadow level, who are you? The voice came from behind, and the attacker turned around suddenly, only to see the stars standing quietly behind him, staring at him curiously. K. For K? Xingchen frowned slightly. 8-tailed human pillar force? That's right, I'm the 8-tailed Manjuli. So it is. Xingchen glanced at Fouquet and asked, you can't control the power of the Yaoi, can you? Fouquet sneered, are you scared? Not fear, but regret. Regret? Fouquet was slightly startled. I once captured a tailed human pillar force in Sand Ninja Village alive, and you, who can't control the tailed beast like him, think you can survive a few moves under me. What, you captured a human pillar force alive? The first time Fouquet heard this, he couldn't help but be shocked. As a human pillar force, his understanding of human pillar force is naturally far better than that of others. Even if the human pillar force cannot fully control the power of the tailed beast, it has a unique advantage. How difficult it is to catch alive. Even so, so what? One tail is the weakest among the 9-tailed beasts, and it is not at the same level as the power of the 8 tails. Fouquet quickly calmed down. No matter what a strong enemy he was in front of him, for the sake of Yunnin village, he must not lose. Yes, you seem to be very confident. It's not self-confidence, but there is a reason why I have to defeat you. I won't let you endanger the village. Fouquet was determined, his hands were sealed, his fingers crossed, and a majestic chakra emerged. Lei Dun Qianju a doppelganger. Wow, I saw a flash of thunder, and after a brief blindness, a second Fouquet appeared in front of Xingchen's eyes. You made such a big determination, and the result was just a thunder doppelganger? Xingchen taunted. If one doppelganger is not enough, what about this? Fouquet drank deeply, and the furious chakra overflowed, constantly forming thunder doppelgangers and connecting with each other. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of thunder doppelgangers were created, densely packed, encircling the stars. The thunder doppelganger is different from the shadow doppelganger, and it takes more chakra in exchange for higher attack power. Hashichin remembered that in the original book, Kakashi used only one thunder shadow avatar to consume almost half of his chakra and physical strength. Right now, Fouquet actually created hundreds of thunder doppelgangers. How terrifying. It is worthy of the pillar power of the 8-tailed people, and on chakra alone, there is still capital to show off. When Fouquet heard this, he was furious. If you think that this is an ordinary thunder doppelganger, then you must be prepared to die. Thunder explosion, endless thousands. With the spell of Fouquet, the Ray doppelganger frantically rushed towards the stars. Sure, Xingchen, remind you, whether you fight back or not, these thunder doppelgangers will explode. The explosion of the thunder avatar must be amazing. Hundreds of thunder doppelgangers exploded. Who can carry it head on? Win. The fourth generation of Thunder Shadow is full of confidence, and he knows the horror of Fogai's move better than anyone. No one but his father could stand in his way. The thunder was so dazzling that people could hardly open their eyes. However, everyone in Yunin village was excited, expecting that as long as the explosion passed, they would be able to see the wonderful scenery of the enemy in front of them. However, at this moment, something suddenly changed, and in the extreme thunder light, beautiful and crystalline ice flowers were scattered, and the entire space froze. Ice? Vokage was shocked. How is it possible? Endless ice flowers centered on the stars spread around, creating ice and snow, and freezing everything. In the realm of sleeve snow, whether it is a thunder avatar, an explosion, or even a light, it will be frozen. In the ice world, only a proud figure remained, standing across the sky. Step on foot. Click. The ice flowers shattered and fell, and Furky's hundreds of thunder doppelgangers were also shattered in an instant, leaving nothing left. In a trance, the stars had arrived in front of Foke, and the two were no more than a stone's throw away. So, what do you have left now? Xingchen gently raised his hand. His movements were extremely slow, but he easily touched Fogai's chest. With the touch of his fingertip, a little ice crystal quickly condensed on Foke's chest, and then spread, as if to freeze K into an ice sculpture. Foke's pupils contracted suddenly, but his body could not move. At this moment, there was only fear in his heart, only despair. Episode 88. Oops. The fourth generation of Thunder Shadow's expression has changed greatly, and Furky is an 8-tailed human pillar force, which cannot be lost. But even Furky was defeated so easily, there was no way to fight back, and he rushed up only to die. Is he a monster? Why is he so powerful like me? Pung. At this moment, a figure flew across with a strong momentum and smashed into the stars. Seeing this, Xingchen immediately let go of Foke, and instead reached out to catch the figure, unloading the momentum from her body. How are you? Hashichin asked Shizuka Hata in her hand. At this time, Shizuka Hachida was obviously injured, her expression was pale, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. I'm defeated, and the immortal arts can't deal with Thunder Shadow. Shizuka Hata, if it weren't for the stars catching her just now, she would have been more seriously injured. As expected, this is your first battle, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. Xingchen comforted softly, and then took out a pill and sent it to Shizuka Hata's mouth. Shizuka Hata, at first, didn't think much about what the stars gave her to eat, and she swallowed it directly. However, to her surprise, the elixir melted in her mouth, restoring her physical strength and trauma at an incredible speed. This is... Without waiting for her to finish, Xingchen interrupted. Go to the side and rest, and leave it to me next. Shizuka Hata did not hesitate too much and stepped aside. Shout. At this time, another extremely fast figure covered in lightning flew in, and with a casual blow, shattered the ice covering Fogai's body, and coldly frowned at the two of them. Sure, Xingchen, although she has learned immortal arts, she is still too tender, and it is too small to expect her to deal with me. Xingchen glanced up at the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow and found that there was no trace of scars on his whole body, and even chakra was not disordered, which showed that he was completely victorious over Shizuka Hata. It is worthy of the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow, the strongest attack, and the strongest defense, not a waste. The 3rd generation of Lei Ying looked indifferent and said, not only that, I also have the fastest speed. Fight, you can't win, escape, you can't escape the same. At this time, Foke also seemed to take a reassuring pill, and his fear of the stars was reduced by a few points. Lord Thunder Kage is a person who can fight completely with the 8 tails alone, and the body of Thunder Dun has the strongest attack, the strongest defense, and the fastest speed, and is the strongest person standing at the peak of the ninja world. If he makes a move, sure Xingchen will definitely lose. If the Flying Thunder God does not come out, the Crane Guardian Shield does not come out, you can really be regarded as the strongest defense and the fastest speed. Xingchen chuckled, but from the moment I stepped into Yunin village, it was destined that your strongest would become a thing of the past. The 3rd generation of Lei Ying's face did not change color. Are you saying that you can break my defenses, or surpass me in speed? Want to try it? Xingchen's eyes flashed, and then a sharp kunai appeared in his hand. Kuwu? The 3rd generation of Lei Ying said contemptuously, my Thunder Dun armor can't even break through S-level ninjutsu. Do you expect Kuwu to pierce it? Kuwu is not taken out to attack you, but a technique. Xingchen said, and suddenly threw Kuwu out. The sharp Kuwu flew towards the 3 generations of Thunder Shadows at an extremely fast speed, but did not stab at him, but flew over his head. Huh? The 3rd generation of Lei Ying frowned. He didn't think that the stars couldn't even shoot Kuwu. Lei Ying, pay attention, it's about to start. Xingchen's eyes narrowed, and then the brilliance flashed, and he disappeared in place. Almost at the same time, he appeared above the head of the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow, and his right palm reached down and slammed on Thunder Shadow's body. Pung! As strong as the 3 generations of Thunder Shadows, he didn't have the slightest time to react, and he was impacted by a huge force and was shocked back several steps. How could it be so fast? The 3 generations of Thunder Shadows finally changed color, and their eyes were tightly fixed on the stars. No matter how fast a person is, when moving, it is also a process. Even if his eyes can't see clearly, he should be able to find clues. However, just now, he did not touch any trace of the movement of the stars, as if it was directly transferred from one place to another, and there was no process of moving in the middle. No, you are space ninjutsu. The 3 generations of Lei Ying quickly reacted. Praise you again, you got it right. Xingchen shook the kunai in his hand, and said a little hanger, no matter how fast you are, can you be faster than space ninjutsu? So that's the case, but the flying thunder god technique needs the technique mark to locate. As long as I stop your flying thunder god from being powerful, it is also empty talk, right? The 3 generations of Thunder Shadow saw through the weakness of the Flying Thunder God at a glance. Although the Flying Thunder God is a space ninjutsu, it is indeed not invincible. As the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow said, the need for magic marks is the biggest weakness of Flying Thunder God. If the other party has destroyed your mark before you cast the Flying Thunder God, then the Flying Thunder God cannot be cast at all. And excluding this weakness, Flying Thunder God is still not invincible. Because even if the Flying Thunder God can move instantaneously, if your own movements are not faster than the opponent's reaction and movement, you will also lose. It's like in the original book, the 4th generation of Hokage uses the Flying Thunder God against the 6 paths of Obito. Even if the 4th generation Hokage teleports behind Rokudo Obito, it will still take time when the 4th Hokage attacks Rokudo Obito. During this time, it was enough for Rokudo Obito to react and fight back before the 4th Hokage touched him. This is a gap in absolute strength, and the Flying Thunder God cannot make up for it. Flying Thunder God is not an invincible technique, it has its weaknesses, I don't deny this. But just because you know weaknesses doesn't mean you can crack them. Xingchen pointed to the Ku-Wu in his hand and said, haven't you noticed, just now there was a Flying Thunder God technique on Ku-Wu, but now that the technique has disappeared, it is just an ordinary Ku-Wu. When the 3 generations of Lei Ying heard this, their expressions changed again. Lei Ying should know that you didn't destroy the Bitter Supreme technique at all. Since it was not destroyed, how did it disappear? Xingchen paused for a moment and said with a smile, maybe it didn't disappear, but it was transferred to another place? At this time, the 3 generations of Thunder Shadows seemed to have sensed something, pulled the clothes in front of their chests, but were surprised to see that a circle of black runes appeared on their chests. This is, understood? Xingchen looked at Lei Ying and said lightly, just in the moment just now, I left the warlock on your body. As wise as you should know what this means, right? Episode 89, you actually left a spell on me, but I couldn't detect it, and I really underestimated you. The 3 generations of Thunder Shadow looked solemn, and the strength of the stars was beyond his expectations. But even so, just when you can move to me anytime, anywhere, and attack me by surprise. But you can't even break my defenses, let you move, if you attack, it will be in vain. You're so confident. Xingchen said lightly, you claim to be the strongest of the 3, and now the speed has been compared to me. Then, even your defenses and attacks are broken together. Then I will respond to your arrogance and activate the thunder armor to the extreme, although it costs chakra a lot, but the opponent is you and cannot give you any chance. The 3 generations of Thunder Shadow said, their footsteps suddenly sank, the ground shattered, and a thick layer of thunder armor was added to their bodies. The defense can even be strengthened. Shizuka Hata was shocked. The previous thunder armor could already ignore her immortal attacks. Now, the thunder armor is urged to the extreme. What is the concept? Don't give me any chance? Xingchen shook his head and said, I don't need you to give alms yet, because no matter how much you strengthen your defenses, in front of me, it will be like a void. Arrogant. The 3 generations of Thunder Shadow were furious. He honored Xingchen as an opponent and had gone all out, but Xingchen seemed to look down on him at all, making him feel insulted. Since it is useless to talk more, then I am not polite. Shocked, 3 generations of Thunder Shadow condensed a large number of chakra on the tip of the index finger, forming a spike. This is the Hell Spurt, and it is also the strongest spear form with one finger, which is the strongest attack of Thunder Shadow. A book? Xingchen's heart moved, and he threw out the Ku-Wu in his hand. Ku-Wu no longer has the Flying Thunder God technique, and this throwing is just an ordinary throw. The 3 generations of Thunder Shadows did not dodge, condensing Chakra's fingers and gently poked. Bang! The sharp bitterness broke without a sound and turned into 2 pieces. Senseless attack. 3 generations of Thunder Shadows mocked. Don't get me wrong, it's not to attack you, it's just that this thing is in the way, and it's just lost casually. Xingchen joked, and then said seriously, but next, according to your strongest move, I will also show a little strength. After all, there was a lot of delay, and it was almost over. When the words fell, the stars once again triggered the forbidden power of physical strength, and the majestic momentum instantly turned the heaven and earth upside down and overturned Shanhuang. 9 Secrets, Battle Saint Law. The secret of the fighting character first appeared in the dust, and the breath of the stars became completely different, mysterious, and sacred, as if it could group the heaven and earth. Whether it was the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow, Fokei, or countless ninjas in Yunnin village, they all felt an extremely strong sense of oppression rushing to their faces at this moment, and they couldn't help but give birth to a sense of trembling. Honor your strongest move. In the astonished gaze of the 3 generations of Lei Ying, Xingchen made exactly the same movement as him, his index finger stretched out, and his fingertips condensed to majestic power. This is a book. Are you imitating my tricks? Imitation is too low-end, maybe evolution is better. The secret of fighting words, the fighting holy law, can evolve all attacks in the world. How simple is a ninjutsu? Imitation or evolution? With my tricks, it is impossible to knock me down. The 3 generations of Lei Ying said so, but there was still a bit of vigilance in their hearts, because he knew very well that compared to the strongest defense of his thunder armor, the strongest attack of a book was slightly better. In other words, a single hand can break through the defense of the thunder armor. However, he was very sure that Xingchen was temporarily imitating his moves, and it should be impossible to exert a complete power, then his thunder armor could still resist. Come on, Shi Xingchen, I'll let you know how stupid your idea is. Well, that's the last resort. After dragging on for so long, Xingchen was not interested in continuing to play. Under the night sky, but see the gods flash. Through the distance of time and space, the star appeared next to the 3 generations of thunder shadows, and a single hand slammed into the 3 generations of thunder shadows. Although he knew that he would be instantly approached when he was labeled as a flying thunder god's technique, the 3 generations of thunder shadows had no choice. With the speed of Xingchen's shot, it was impossible for him to dodge this attack. Since you can't dodge, you can only hard connect and block it by defense. Laugh at. In an instant, a hand and the lei-dun armor collided together, sending out violent friction. Shi Xingchen, your time of death has arrived. At this time, the 3rd generation of Thunder Shadow suddenly reached out and firmly grabbed Xingchen's wrist, restraining his movements. It's a pity that you failed to break through my defense in the first place, and now you who are rashly approached, but passive. When the opportunity comes, how can the 3 generations of Lei Ying keep their hands? One hand, one kill. The tip of the index finger, the majestic chakra condensed, and the strongest spear of the stars stabbed out towards the chest of the stars. However, when it was said, it was fast. Obviously he and lei-dun armor were deadlocked, and the stars that were grabbed by Lei Ying's wrist, and the book condensed by his fingertips suddenly expanded by 1 point, forming a matchless sword chi, easily cutting through lei-dun armor and penetrating into Lei Ying's body. Poof! Blood spilled and stained the night sky. Ah! How could it be? Lei-dun armor was forced, his body was penetrated, and Lei Ying suffered unprecedented heavy damage, and he continued to bleed. Not to mention the attack, even the figure cannot stand firmly. Father! The 4th generation of Thunder Shadows rushed up desperately. Impossible, the thunder armor was broken in an instant. What kind of move is that? Furke stared blankly at the scene in front of him. Although Xingchen's starting style was very similar to a book of hands, the outstanding sword chi at the end was not a book at all. He could see very clearly that even if he wanted to break through the Thunder Dun armor, it would take a certain amount of time, and in this extremely short time, it was enough for Thunder Shadow to fight back. Just at the moment of the attack, that inexplicable sword chi instantly broke through the thunder armor and seriously injured the Thunder Shadow. Lei Ying, you have lost. The stars stood quietly, looking at the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow who were still bleeding and needed support to barely stand, with an indifferent expression. The 3 generations of Lei Ying's chi and blood gradually weakened, but they already knew it in their hearts. He is proud of himself all his life, speed, defense, attack, the 3 strongest. However, in the confrontation just now, Xingchen crushed his speed one after another, defeated his defenses, and unleashed attacks that were far stronger than him. The strongest of the 3, all became a joke. Now think about it, if the stars really just want to divide the victory and defeat, it may be just a momentary thing. Episode 90. Father, you are very injured, don't talk. The 4th generation of Lei Ying was anxious. I'll take you to heal your injuries right away. However, the 3rd generation of Lei Ying shook his head and looked at the stars. I lost, what are you going to do? What do you think? Xingchen raised his eyebrows and said lightly. The 4th generation of Lei Ying blocked his father's body and said angrily, don't be arrogant. My father saw that you were young and let you, so he fought with you alone. What do you think this place is? If we went with my father just now, you would have lost long ago. Then I shouldn't be blamed, only that you are too light on the enemy, right? Xingchen said lightly, besides, even if you go together, it won't change the ending. Try it over there, our Yunnin village. The 4th generation of Thunder Shadow has not finished speaking, but it is blocked by the 3rd generation of Thunder Shadow. Shi Xingchen, so many ninjas in my Yunnin village are not vegetarians. If they really want to fight, they will only lose both. I know that you are here just to seek justice for Chimu Shuama's affairs, and there is no need to meet in life and death. Xingchen raised his eyebrows. Then what do you think should be done? You leave first, I'll give you an answer in 2 days. How? Well, believe you once. Xingchen was very crisp, turned to Shizuka Hata, and said, you're almost recovered, let's go back. Shizuka Hata stunned slightly. Could it be that when he was fighting on the side, he was still thinking about the recovery of his injuries? Then again, after taking that pill, the injury he suffered happened to recover at this time. Well, it's okay. Then let's go. Xingchen and Shizuka Hachida left together, and the Yaninju immediately felt that the oppressive atmosphere had decreased a lot. It was obviously just 2 people, who made a big fuss in Yunnin village, and even injured Lei Ying, and finally flew away. No one dared to pursue, some just rejoiced to send away the Grim Reaper. How ironic. Father, just let them leave like this. How will our Yunin village gain a foothold in the future, and how will we become the #1 ninja village? The third generation of Laying smiled bitterly and shook his head. There are people outside the people, and there is a sky outside the sky. Konoha is guarded by Xingchen, and our Yunin village can only be a supporting role forever. He's just one person anyway. The fourth generation of Laying was still unconvinced. He thought that the overall strength of Yunin village today was far better than Konoha. How could he say such frustrating words because of a Xingchen? In the face of absolute power, it is not okay to disobey. At the beginning, the original Hokage also single-handedly subdued the 4 ninja villages, and no one in the ninja world dared to offend Konoha. Xingchen will undoubtedly become the second original Hokage-like existence. You believe in Laying so much, what if he just delays the army and waits 2 days to heal his injuries before paying the bill? Shizuka Hata didn't understand what the stars were doing. Don't worry, as long as Laying is not stupid, he will not be untrustworthy. And from now on, as long as the 3 generations of Thunder Kage are still in power, he will never dare to offend Konoha again. The stars are full of confidence. Shizuka Hata seems to understand whether or not to understand. Perhaps the 3 generations of Thunder Shadow who have been hit hard have a deeper understanding of the strength of the stars than anyone else. Indeed, it is too unwise for a person or a village to be an enemy of him. With the footsteps of the 2, when they returned to Konoha, it was not yet dawn. Shizuka Hachida has been living in the wet bone forest for 2 years, and in Konoha, she doesn't have a place to live, so Hashida can only take her home. Although he lives with Tsunade Hashichin, there are still many rooms in the house, and it is not a hindrance to live one more person. Unfortunately, Tsunade and Naoki are not at home, and they must have gone out on a mission. For 2 years, he spent almost all of his time in retreat, rarely seeing Tsunade and not knowing how they were doing. It turns out that you and Tsunade live together, so you are not just a teacher-student relationship, right? Shizuka Hata actually doesn't know anything about the past of the stars. She knew that Xingchen and Tsunade had a close relationship, but she always thought that it was just a teacher-student relationship. I became an orphan since I was a child, and Tsunade's parents accepted me, so I lived with Tsunade Ropiki since I was a child, and I have always been a family. Family, do you mean siblings, or some other relationship? Shizuka Hachida gossiped. Xingchen gave her a blank look. Be pure in your heart, don't think about it. You can stay here in the future, the room on the north side is still empty. Well, it's convenient too. Shizuka Hata was not at all restrained, and said cheerfully, good night then. The next day, the 3 generations of Hokage, who learned of the return of the stars, personally came to find them, and the 2 talked for an afternoon. On the 3rd day, the messenger of Yunin village came to Konoha again, causing a sensation for a while, and was blocked outside Konoha village. After all, in the name of signing a peace treaty, Yunin village came to Konoha to make trouble, frame the stars, and create the 9 Tails Rebellion, which caused Konoha to suffer heavy damage. And not long ago, Laying killed Chimu Shuamao, which was even more infuriating. The new hatred and the old hatred made the people of Konoha no longer have half a good impression of Yunin village. In the end, the 3 generations of Hokage personally came forward to solve the dispute and let the Yunin messenger enter the village. Amazingly, after the envoy of Yunin village entered the village, the first person to go was in front of Chimu Shuamao's tombstone, repented and publicly apologized. Immediately, the 3rd generation of Hokage also personally addressed Kiki Shua Shigeru, gave Kiki Shua Shigeru the highest respect and evaluation, and named him the hero of Konoha. This change has puzzled most people. Why did Yunin village suddenly apologize and repent for Kiki Shuamao's death? Why did Kiki Shua, who betrayed the ninja code, be highly praised by Naruto and become a hero? Desperate to save his companions, Kiki Shuamao is a hero, a true hero. Finally, under the admiration of Hokage, someone stood up to support Kiki Shuamao. The human heart is like this, like to be driven by the big trend. When someone took the lead in praising Chimu Shuamao, most people gradually recognized him. You didn't hesitate to break into Yunin village and seriously injure Laying, just for such a result? Shizuka Hata felt that Xingchen was making a fuss. She also thought that Yunin village would come up with some compensation, but the result was just to send a few people to Konoha to apologize. Xingchen seemed to be very satisfied, and said with a smile, this is the best compensation, don't just look at the surface. This matter is not only related to Chimu Shuamao, but also plays an influential role in people's concepts.